We are trying to get the projector to work. What did you do the other night to get it to work? It's on. It says
Hey, Dick.
All right, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
How's the sugar in this year?
So far, it hasn't been very good.
Really?
But I expect the next 3 or 4 days going to change that picture.
I think because, you think it's because the snow around the base of the trees kind of slowing it down?
Well, it really hasn't been warm enough. There was a couple days there when it ran pretty good, but it hasn't been warm enough.
Yeah.
I got one line underneath the actual trail that was thought out.
Thing work? Oh.
Tomorrow, probably, right?
I think, let's see, I mute myself. Come on, Kate.
And then put it back in. Turn it off and then try it, or?
It all, can't get a grasp on it at all.
Yeah, there are other settings.
That's what my kids tell me all the time. Unplug it, plug it back in, and start over again. Usually it helps.
You gotta go backwards.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
Yeah.
Lee, Heather, can you hear us?
What's wrong?
Did you sign in? Okay, thank
Hey,
you.
Lee or Heather, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. We were having.
I can hear you too. I just can't see you.
Yeah, I can't see you either.
Gotta turn that camera.
But I can see the other participants.
We're getting there.
Hi, Remus.
Hi, nice to see you.
Good to see you. I think the camera's not started yet. When you get the camera started, you'll be able to see everybody that's at the town hall.
Great. It's a pretty good turnout.
was just on, Julie. Then it went off again.
It's on now.
Oh, it's on again.
If people on Zoom see the room, is that the issue?
They're both on there now. Town of Chester with the whole room, it looks like.
Okay.
And now, yeah. Bear with us, everybody, as we try to work out some kinks. The long view is fine.
Amy, you may just have to switch it to speaker view. Spotlight. Go back to spotlighting the video, Amy.
Okay.
So Dick, when you were chairman, you never had these issues.
They
like
were
this,
trying
did you?
to do lots of different things today.
No. We're okay?
You can go ahead and start, I think.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
Well, it's about 6:05, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome you to our March 17th Select Board meeting. Those of you joining us via Zoom and the people here. The first business on the agenda is to approve our minutes from our March 3rd meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Lee is
Second.
Jeff is the second. Any discussion, changes, corrections on those minutes?
I have nothing.
Nothing.
Lee or Heather, all set with the minutes?
Yeah, there was just one little typo, and now I can't find my minutes, but it was just a word signing. It said singeing instead. That's okay.
Okay. Anything else?
All good.
All good? All those in favor of approving the minutes as written with the correction that Lee Dakin stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next item is citizens' comments. If there was someone here that would like to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. Are there any citizens' comments? Anything from previous meetings, Julie? Any notes, nothing?
No.
No? We'll move on to old business. Julie, can you take us through our old business list?
Yes, so back to the Emerald Ash borer issue. There is a handful of people in town who have stepped up that are interested in working on a small committee. The first thing that we as a town need to do is create an inventory of the ash trees that are in the town's right-of-way. That is our first step. So anybody that's interested in being a part of that can reach out. I was going to let it go till maybe the beginning of next week and then just proceed with the individuals that have reached out to me already. So that inventory will be starting soon. The police policies, Trevor Whipple has from VLCT, has completed the review of those policies. There were some updates that were needed, some policies that for police we need to be adopting annually. So he is working with Rick on getting things updated. The policies that do need to get updated, we will be using VLCT's model policies for those, which Jim Carroll agrees that those are the most up-to-date and what we should be using. So Those are not policies that the select board adopts. There's nothing you need to do with that, but it was a topic of discussion several months ago, so this is just an update to let you know where that is at. Brookside Cemetery, we are going to be working on that bridge and trail this summer. That is going. We are currently getting a design from a structural engineer. We decided that that was going to be necessary. He did reduce his cost quite a bit, but the highway guys, with the length of the span that we need to cross, our guys were a little uncomfortable designing it. It's beyond what we typically do. So we have hired a structural engineer for that, paid for through the grant, and I'm proceeding with permitting, excuse me, now, so we should be ready to go this spring. VYCC, Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, will be coming in to help with the construction of that.
Julie, from whom do we need to get permits for that?
So the only permit that's needed on this one is our local floodplain. So we go to the DRB,
Okay.
basically. And during that process, the state floodplain specialist will do a review. We have met with him multiple times already. We are spanning the wetlands, so we should not need a wetlands permit. And the abutments will not be in the waterway, so we don't need stream alteration on this.
Great. Thank you.
Yep. The ambulance, I don't really know if this is old business, but it's just more of an FYI for you guys. I'm having an assessment done of the ambulance service, our policies, procedures. It's very long overdue. It's been a lot of years. Dan Manns, who is the retired EMS chief for the state of Vermont, has been contracted to come in. He'll be meeting with all of the ambulance personnel, reviewing our policies, procedures, and making recommendations to how we can improve that service in town. Amy is also doing the ambulance billing and ways we can improve that, increase our collection rate, looking at the fees that we're charging. Are they consistent with what other municipalities are charging? We haven't looked at that in a number of years, so she's doing an assessment of that for me. The Fall Festival, Lee Whiting reached out to me this week. There is as most of us know, the Rotary is not doing the Fall Festival this year. So there is a group of individuals in town that has taken that on. They have a core group. It's a small core group, and they are really looking for people who, bodies to, the legwork that goes into hosting an event like that. So this is just a call out to anybody that's here or on Zoom or in the community on SAPA watching that. If you are interested in helping with that, they desperately need volunteers, let me know, and I can get you in touch with Lee Whiting, and he can find you something to do, I'm sure. And then two more things quickly. It's a lot of old business. The stimulus update, just to kind of let you guys know, as everybody knows, Biden signed into law the newest stimulus. There is a chunk of that money, a large sum that is coming to the state of Vermont, but this time around, different than the coronavirus relief fund or relief program, this package has money coming direct to municipalities. And there are certain ways that we can spend it. All of those details are being worked out right now. It will definitely have to have a COVID relationship with the money, but the details are coming. So I'll keep you posted as that gets better defined, what the amounts are, when we'll be getting it.
I heard that there was a lot more flexibility in how the money could be spent this time. It still has to be related to COVID, but there's a lot more leeway as far as where it could go and stuff. And I know they're working out the details and trying to figure out all the fine points of it.
That is what was argued for, was the original CARES Act money that came states had a very hard time spending that because they put such tight restrictions on it. This time, they have loosened those, so there will be more flexibility. I do know that they are opening that up to water and sewer infrastructure, whereas the last one was not. So we definitely have some things that could fit into that category. So I'll be watching it. I'm on a meeting next week where hopefully we'll have a little more information. But I'll keep you updated as I learn more.
Yeah, that infrastructure, it was heavily leaning towards like broadband and items
There's
like that.
broadband, but they've added water and wastewater. Transportation infrastructure will not be included. But water and wastewater, I mean, we certainly have plenty of projects that can fit into that category. So that and, yeah, there's a few things that have been kind of poked around. But once I get final details, I'll let you guys know. And I think for the most part, that's it for all business.
Thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
Does any board members have any old business? Any concerns?
Not at this time.
I have to keep looking in different places, the people that are here, and then I try to look at the screen, and I have a hard time seeing with these little tiny pictures up there. You okay, Lee?
Yeah, she's all right.
All right.
Hey, Arnie,
Yes.
can you come down through the list and just make sure we know who everybody is?
Where everybody is?
Who everybody is?
Where is the list?
There's some people that are on here with
On the
phone
right-hand
numbers
side.
that I think they called in,
Okay.
and I'm gonna need to know their names and people on
Julie,
it.
can you see that a little better than I can on the side?
I can. So, Amy, you have Ramus Preda, Preda. You have 2 phone numbers. One of them, I believe, is Gary Gibbs. The other phone number that is not Gary Gibbs, could you tell us what your name is?
Hi, Corey Quinville's here.
Oh, that's that, Corey. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you have Aaron Gorek, Kathy Hasbrook, Cheryl, what is the last, is that Cheryl Joy Lipton? Cynthia Prairie, Everett Mosier, must be your mom's laptop. Heather Chase. You gotta scroll down, Amy, I can't.
Heather Chase, and then who is Everett Mosier?
Everett Mosier is sitting right here.
Who's actually
Yeah.
Brian Mosier?
Okay, yeah. Brian is on. Okay, it's Brian Mosier that's on Zoom.
Okay. And then who's the
Kent Gilman.
Kent?
Jacob, Robert, Need, Ryan.
Jeff? Who's Jennifer?
Jennifer, last name for Jennifer?
Be Jennifer and John Wright.
Oh, John and Jennifer Wright. Thanks, Jen. And then who is 48085? Somebody is on as 48085. Can you identify who you are? I guess not.
Okay.
So just write it down as 48085.
Or
Unknown.
Is it just me, but it looks blurry to me from here?
It is a little bit.
It is a little bit?
It is a little bit.
Thank you.
We can probably fix the.
I think it's
It's
coming.
okay. It's all right. Okay, I think we've got everybody, so you can continue.
That's good, thank you.
So that's it?
You're welcome.
You got everybody there?
Yep.
All right, we'll go on to our next agenda item, which is a yearly update that we have from People's United Bank on our investment accounts. And I believe Remus Preda and Gary Gibbs from People's United are here to give us a summary of basically our Chester Economic Development Fund. And just give us a little update on where we stand and how it's performed over the last year. I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago that we first started investing that development fund so we can gain some assets from it, and it's proven to be pretty a wise idea to do over the years. I'm not sure exactly how much we've accumulated and added wealth from the investment, but it's been doing pretty good. So Remus and Gary, can you please give us a summary on the account summary for the development fund?
Sure, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. My name is Remus Pareda, and I'm here with my colleague Gary Gibbs. He's, I believe, in the frame between Lay and Kent. We're here from People's United Bank, and we are charged with helping the Select Board manage the Chester Economic Development Fund. Yes, the fund has done well, and we're continuing to work towards that end. The one thing, some of you may be aware of this, but I think it's one thing that you probably need to know is that our bank is in the process of merging with M&T Bank. So that's probably going to happen, will be consummated towards the end of the year. It shouldn't really have any impact on what we do for you. It should still be us working with you, and but that's something that's in the works, and most likely will happen. Sometimes these things do fall apart for regulatory reasons. So anyway, just in case some of you weren't aware of that, that's in the works. The only other thing I have before I turn it over to Gary to go over the investments is again, I have a question: are there any sort of needs for cash from this account? That's something that I always ask, so we can kind of prepare for that in case there are. So if there are, you don't have to let me know right now, but somebody should, kind of communicate that to us, and then we can prepare that.
We were just discussing that, Remus, about the fund in general, and we haven't had much activity with it at all over the last year or two, or even longer than that. So we don't anticipate any cash needs out of that fund, but we are going to start a discussion about the procedures on how we can make those funds available, so maybe we can get more people interested in using those funds. So that might come up in the future, but as far as anything in the immediate future for cash, we don't see that happening at this point.
And all these funds are really liquid. We can have cash available in a couple of days, 2-3 days, depending on what day of the week you let us know. But the further ahead we can plan for that, the better we can kind of look at how we sell what we sell and how we make that cash available. So that's why I always kind of try to ask that question every time we meet.
Sure. What was the other bank that you're planning on merging with?
It's M&T Bank. They're a bank that originated in Buffalo, New York, and they're kind of obviously they're in New York State, and they kind of head south down towards, I believe they go as far as Virginia on the East Coast, and they wanted to have a presence in New England. So I guess their presence is us, will be us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, I'll let Gary take it away. Gary was having some computer problems, so he's kind of on the screen, but he's using his phone to kind of call in. So hopefully that'll work. It's all yours, Gary.
Thank you, Remus. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, sounds loud here.
My phone. Okay, my phone is kind of to my right and my computer screen's in front of me. To Remus's point, M&T Bank also owns Wilmington Trust Company out of Delaware. They're a bit larger firm than we are, but to echo what Remus said, I anticipate that we will continue to have the same presence and same form of relationship building and those kind of things into the future. So we'll see greater changes towards the end of calendar year 2021. What I'd like to reference is there were a couple of reports that were generated as of March 12th, and the Economic Development Fund has a 12-page report, and I'll start on page 3 if anybody can reference that report. It says account summary in the upper left. There's kind of a pie chart, donut kind of shape in the upper left. And to the earlier, what we see in the lower right of that page is, we started this account with about $295,000. We've made about $161,000, and that is from 9/1/2015. So obviously, it's not quite 6 years, 5.5 years roughly, and there have been no distributions from this fund. So all that money has accumulated. The current balance is about $458,000, and then an annualized rate of return roughly 9.3%. Q1, 3, and year-to-date numbers, they're obviously very short-term. Under the structure of this account, we have maintained this balanced investment objective, and that's something that we went through with the town setting up this account. I think it's still prudent. Essentially, our definition of a balanced investment objective is 40 to 60% in equities, 20 to 55% in bonds, and then some level of cash, which right now we have tactically about 3%, and then some exposure to real assets. In this case, it's real estate investment trust. So you can see that broad asset class kind of in the middle third of that page. And right now, we prefer the equity market over the bond market over the cash market. I'll talk in greater detail. So to answer the earlier, or to respond to the earlier point, the rate of return is roughly 9.31% on an annual basis since 9/1/15. If you go to page 4, you'll see the asset allocation breakdown. Our responsibility is to be stewards of this money and take prudent risk, but also be well diversified. So in this asset allocation breakdown, you can see where the equity money is invested. Obviously, we have some money in international, small and mid cap, but the core of our management is in large cap, domestic private enterprise. So I would put that, maybe in the S&P 500, probably closer to the S&P 100. And then fixed income, we have some exposure to high yield bond and generally risk averse on the fixed income side. So we do not own any international debt. We don't own mortgage-backed securities, individual securities. So the style page, the style diversification page is there. It shows the real estate investment trust. The next page, page 5, shows a line graph going back to the beginning of the account, and then annual or 12-month periods with rates of return going back to 2017 through 2019 or 2020, excuse me, and then year to date, which again is a very short period of time. So of the last 4 years, including 2020, 2018 was the toughest year, where the month of September and December basically removed all the positive returns for that year. So the account in 2018 was down by about 5%. The other 3 years, the total rate of return has been in the teens, with 2019 being close to 20%. 2020, as we all know, was quite a roller coaster, and I would not have anticipated a positive double-digit rate of return for 2020, especially where we were with the equity markets about a year ago today. I think it was the 23rd of March when the equity markets bottomed. So since then, and especially in the fourth quarter of 2020, we had very strong rates of return. This fund was up about $48,000, and year to date, we've had a decent rate of return. The equity markets continue to set highs or push the highs further. And again, I think this is somewhat reflective of Julie's comment earlier about fiscal stimulus and also monetary policy. There was a comment made today that rates are likely to stay low until 2023. This account yields current income of about 1.5%. And if you were to buy a U.S. Treasury note, you would have to go out approximately 10 years to maturity to imitate that current income. So rates on the short end, especially the short end, are very, very low. Anybody who has a savings account or a money market fund knows that. And on top of that consideration, money has flowed into the equity markets, which obviously has caused them to move up. So that page five, excuse me, is an annual calendar year look back. On that line graph, the red line that's essentially flat shows what would have happened to the pool of money had you done nothing. The town had done nothing. It would be essentially worth what it is today, right? If it had been in a money market fund or a savings account. The jagged line above that shows the impact of active investment. And the separation between those two, again, is about $160,000. And so, again, to the earlier point, I think the timing of it was well timed. I think the risk that we take is relatively low. We maintain liquidity. We've had a very good run in equity markets. We anticipate that into the foreseeable future. The risk, obviously, to the bond market is rising interest rates. We've seen a bit of that. We've seen some elements of inflation, obviously with gas prices and to some extent food prices. So on page 6 and through page 8 are some rates of return. And don't get too hung up on them, but it gives you an idea comparing the equity returns to the bond returns, international versus domestic, small versus mid-cap. And you can see gross return, inception to date, those numbers are very strong. Large cap growth, is up about 20%. Mid-cap value is up about 20%. And the international money that we have invested has not kept up with domestic rates of return. However, there is strong negative correlation between, international equity ownership and domestic equity ownership. Then if you compare, this is the real stark contrast. I'm looking at page 7 now. The fixed income returns have been, 3.72%, and compare that to the equity returns, which have been 14%. We feel that separation, that just arithmetic difference, is unsustainably high. So that's about 10 or 11% per year since 2015. So we're not anticipating all of a sudden that fixed income returns will ramp up. We're anticipating that at some point these equity returns will moderate. And especially if interest rates rise, bondholders typically lose money. So those those fixed income returns may be even smaller than they are currently. You can see also the real estate investment asset class that we own is a return about 8.5%. Again, less than the equity returns, the broad equity returns, but again, a negatively correlated asset. Typically, real estate doesn't have a fully populated page, but the current yield is about 1.6% or $7,200–7,300 a year. That number is an approximation looking forward for the next 12 months. So for the select board's purposes, you could easily allocate that money to a recipient and not dip into the principal. Again, a 10-year treasury note is yielding about 1.63 today. So in order to duplicate that yield on a U.S. Treasury, you have to go to the long end of not the long end, but midterm, I should say, of the U.S. Treasury yield curve. So are there any questions? I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but in a nutshell, that's the account as it stood as a closed business on the 11th of March, 2021.
Thank you, Gary. Any questions from any board members regarding the summary that Gary just gave us?
I have none.
No.
Thank you.
Yes, very
Gary,
clear.
I had one quick question when you were talking about the merger. Does a merger like that happen because both parties are looking for it, or is one a takeover? And how does that work? And one thing that you said that worried me a little bit, that you anticipate our relationship is going to be the same as it's been. Do sometimes the relationships change, or do they downsize, or what happens? Well,
what happens is, they approach the business the same way we do. They work in teams with every relationship, and they also have an investment process like what we follow. And so we anticipate, again, that the investment process, we don't know all the details yet. This is early on in the process. I do know from my previous life in New York, competing against M&T, that they're a very well-run organization. They do business nearly identically to how we did at Chittenden days, People Use United days. So I expect it will be very, very similar, but obviously I don't know enough, we don't know enough to say with details, how it will look. And I missed the first part of your question. I couldn't hear you clearly.
Oh, about how does a merger like that happen? Is it is it a hostile takeover type of thing, or is it?
No. It was an agreement by both groups of shareholders. Our CEO Jack Barnes, who's a Vermonter, routinely is talking to. We have been an acquirer for years. We were for Chittenden for years. But his responsibilities to the shareholders and to the employees. So it was a common agreement between M&T and People's United. It was no way, shape, or form either organization were stressed, whether it was regulatory or financially. It was just a common agreement between two, I would say, very complementary organizations.
Well, thanks for that information. And I was just curious because the service that you guys have been provided over the 5 years that you've been with us is, we've been quite satisfied with it and happy with the results that are going on. And I'm just curious about the background on how things like that happen. When you were saying that the benefit is for the stockholders and the banks, that's great, but I would hope it would be for us people on the bottom here, that the benefit is for us also.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that, really, because M&T doesn't have a presence in New England or Vermont, most likely they're not going to change anything. If it was maybe a bank like TD that already has a presence, then they may see us as being redundant or other groups in our bank, and then we may have to worry about them downsizing and things like that. But M&T does not have a presence, and they are merging with us because they would like to have a presence. So, nothing's guaranteed, but there's a likelihood. There's a very, very high likelihood that really nothing much will change other than the name.
All right, thank you, guys. Anybody else have any questions, any concerns?
I'd just like to say thank you. I think you've done a really good job, and I think it was a great decision to go with you guys in 2015, and it's really done quite well. So thank you very much.
Well, to echo that, Heather, first of all, thank you. We appreciate our clients being aware of the circumstances and how we manage money. And we've talked about this in the past, that this money may very well outlive us all, right? We are stewards of this money. So we take incremental and prudent risk in generating return. And this money may, again, be 50-year money. So we appreciate the towns, and I know there's a lot of change in every select board, and we appreciate your listening to us and following our suggestions, and we're very happy to see it work and work well. The other point I'll make is that there was a second report, and we don't have to go through this for the town, that we present to the trustees. That report, I don't know, Julie, if you included it or not, but it's nearly identical in format. So that is there for your perusal as well. And again, thank you. It's very important to us that we speak with you folks, and look forward to seeing you face to face next time around.
All right, well, thanks a lot for the update, guys, and probably see you next year.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you again.
Next item on our agenda is the Route 103 Bridge Project. Just a little background information. This is a project regarding the Palmer, Jewett, and Thompson bridges on Route 103. and I guess it was back in September of 2019, somewhere thereabouts, that it was reviewed by the Select Board, and the state recommendation at that time was to remove the Thompson, Jewett, and Palmer bridges and replace them with one bridge at a new location, a safer location, a better location as far as access and safety, basically, and other reasons also. At that time, the board selected alternative 2, which was replacing Thompson and Jewett bridges with the one bridge off alignment and just repairing the Palmer Bridge. There was a lot of discussion at that time, and there was a lot of controversy regarding one of the options there because it involved condemnation of property of a landowner that would be involved in this area there. Back then, it was the scoping project that the state was presenting to us, and now the state has come to us with the project, and they've hired an engineering firm to begin the formal design of the project. So Aaron Goyette, the project engineer, as well as John Griffith, the state project manager, reached out to us just to make sure that the board was still comfortable with this option before beginning the final design. We agreed to have a presentation by them. They're going to give us a presentation regarding the project and where it stands right now, and it'll be available for questions or comments or concerns, and we'll see where we go from there. So Aaron and John, I guess one of you or both of you will be giving us a presentation regarding this project.
Yeah, thanks for having us tonight. I'm trying to share my screen, and it looks like I need to be allowed to do that. It says the host is disabled participant screen sharing.
Hang on.
We'll check on that. We've been having a few issues here.
Amy's doing it.
Great, thanks.
Hi, everybody. I just want to do introductions. I guess Aaron will wait for that, but I'm Jonathan Griffin, the V-Trans project manager. Aaron Goyette, he's the design consultant project manager. And then I think, Aaron, you've got some team members that are on the call that maybe you could introduce as well.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. Jeff and Ryan, do you guys want to introduce yourself? I guess Ryan is the structural engineer working on the project. We're working on the bridge design, and Jeff Bakayaki is the roadway engineer working on the project, working on the roadway side of things.
Hi, everyone. Everybody.
Hello, guys.
So once we get the presentation up and running, we'll take you through it. It's relatively brief, and then we'll be able to answer any questions that you guys have. All right.
You could see the screen at this point.
Okay, you guys can see it now?
Yep, the screen sharing is working.
Great. All right, so basically this is the Chester BO 1442-39 project. That's the naming convention that we have for it. And just an overview, originally at the scoping report, we basically kind of identified these green nodes as kind of points of interest. So just wanted to show that on the title slide here. So today we've already introduced ourselves, Vermont Agency of Transportation, myself, Jonathan Griffin, and VHB, our consultant who's designing this project. And like mentioned previously, we've completed scoping. We're in the conceptual and moving into preliminary design. This is when the major design effort occurs. We'll start expending a lot of time and effort and financial resources on this project. So we wanted to just regroup, make sure that what we were doing was appropriate before we got too far down into that design phase. So after conceptual design, we'll move into preliminary, final, and then ultimately construction. So just a quick recap, I believe it was August of 2019 that we presented this alternative. This was the V-Trans recommended alternative, and as you can see on the screen here, there's a new bridge location on 103, and then on the dark black lines indicate proposed new roadways that would basically connect all of the parcels on the other side of the Williams River so that you had access to 103. And this was the alternative that was recommended at that time. And then one of the other, this was the preferred alternative, which left Palmer separate from the new bridge and just replaced the bridges on Thompson and Jewett Road with one new crossing. And that was the alternative that we did some conceptual design layout on, and we've got some information to show you guys on this today. So the purpose and need, ultimately, kind of the purpose and need drives every project. So the purpose of the project when it went into scoping was, to create safe, reliable, low maintenance, cost-effective access from 103 to the homes and properties along Thompson, Jewett, and Palmer. And the need was the existing bridges had advanced stages of deterioration. They're structurally deficient, functionally obsolete, didn't meet current design codes for load capacity. They were hydraulically undersized, and then they had substandard intersections with 103. So that didn't provide for appropriate or safe ingress or egress to 103. So that is what was the driving force behind the scoping report and ultimately the conceptual design right now as we stand. I'll give it to Aaron here to talk a little bit about a new development, something that, and I guess Aaron, you can kick it off, and then I'll circle back with the funding piece.
Sure. Yeah. So this is an update. Since the scoping part of the project was completed, VTrans has identified this project as their first digital project delivery. And what this means is that the project will be developed in a digital three-dimensional model, both the bridge and the roadway, and then that model will be used to bid the project and ultimately construct it. If you think about the way that VTrans currently constructs projects, it's traditionally paper plans or, PDFs, but they're two-dimensional plan views. So you're just seeing, that two-dimensional view that, us as engineers are thinking is important for a contractor to view. And you miss out on, if you think about cross sections, we'll cut them every 50 feet. So you miss out on that area in between. With digital delivery, it's going to be a full three-dimensional model. It's going to provide greater accuracy for contractors and designers alike. We'll be able to look at clash detection from the different elements of the project, constructability reviews ongoing with the contractor, evaluate construction phasing, and then it will play into the construction side of things, allowing for automated machine guidance. So if you think about roadway construction, if we have a digital surface for that roadway, a contractor can take that surface, import it into their software, and through GIS units on their bulldozers and graders, use that surface to grade out that roadway. Becomes a lot more accurate, a lot more efficient, and easier to construct. So just on the right-hand side here, just a couple of visualizations. That bottom right-hand picture is a three-dimensional bridge model, and that's probably a similar style bridge that we'd be looking at here for Chester. The top view is just kind of pulling apart those layers or levels that would be in a roadway model. You can see, you can model it down to, I know it's not applicable for this project, but buried utilities, and what is applicable for this project is the subbase, the subgrade, all the ditching becomes a complete project view.
And I just would want to let everybody know that these models aren't new. The fact that we're going to be issuing the model to the contractor as a contract document is what is new. It's common to develop 3D models and surfaces and provide that information to the contractor as information only, but it's not contractual. And we've been using that information for constructing roadways and surfaces and bridges with machine guidance already. The new piece is the fact that becomes the actual bid document. I don't want anybody to be too scared that maybe we're trying something that we've never done before that's very, very new. There are pieces of it that are new, but there are pieces of it that are well established as well.
That's a really good point, John. It's been, I mean, the automated machine guidance has been used in Vermont for at least the last decade, potentially longer.
And one of the reasons that we opted to do this is because it engaged some additional federal funding. So during the scoping report, we had a funding scenario that was 80% federal, 10% state, 10% municipal. The feds have agreed to increase their participation to 85%. And what that does is that allows us to split that funding, that federal funding, with the municipality. And for those of you who are quick on your feet, you'll say that doesn't add up right now from what I'm seeing. So Another thing that we're proposing as well is using Act 153, which basically allows the state to reduce the town share from 10% to 5% if you close the bridge for the duration of construction. So how we would achieve that would be constructing the roadway portions first, then closing Thompson Bridge, and detouring the traffic on Thompson over to Jewett. So that allows us to utilize Act 153, reduce the municipal share from 10% to 5%, and then split the federal share, with the state and the town, the reduction in federal share or increase in federal share, to further reduce the municipal share to approximately 2.5%. I say approximately because we're not exactly sure which portions of the project will be eligible for that federal participation. Right now, our understanding is that 100% of it will, but in case there are some caveats that certain parts are participating and certain parts are not, I just wanted to kind of leave that door open. The caveat is it may be a slight tweak of that actual funding ratio, but right now, as it stands, we anticipate the municipal funding would be 2.5%, and we may even be able to advocate for giving more of that federal share to the municipality, further reducing your share.
That sounds good.
So today we've engaged some stakeholders. We did that through scoping. We've tried reaching out. Today is another part of stakeholder coordination. We're engaging with the town. We'll be engaging with property owners, environmental regulators, utility companies, and we have engaged with the operating railroad already to date, and that has enforced some of our decision making and recommendations today. So I guess we'll move forward to that, Aaron. I guess before we get there, just a general timeline of the project. Right now we're in conceptual design, and as you can see, we're in 2021, partway through the year. We go into preliminary design and final design, and preliminary design is where most of the hard work gets done. So that's the big effort, and that's where we're about to start. So that was the purpose for today's meeting, was to just make sure that we were on the same page, moving forward correctly, before we incurred those efforts. All right, so identification of the destination node. So we talked about this on the first slide. Basically the concept was there were several points of interest that we wanted to connect. So this just gives you an idea of what those points are. How to get between the points isn't as important to our side of the design team, so long as we can try and connect the points of interest and avoid the resources. So the next slide, I think, overlays our resource constraints that we are working around. Aaron, I don't know if you want to talk about this a little bit, this particular slide and the resources shown here.
Sure, yeah. So a number of different resources are shown on here. The Williams River has got both a floodway associated with it, as well as a floodplain. The floodway is the hatched area, and there's a floodplain. It's another light pink line that's just beyond the floodway, which is the floodplain. In the bright pink color is the archaeological sensitive areas, which doesn't necessarily mean that there's archaeological artifacts there, but just that we need to evaluate those areas. There is a 4F historic property identified. Let's see here. The light blue outline are some wetlands that have been identified. And then as well are the property lines on here as well, that not resources, but they are other constraints.
Thank you. So next slide. So on this slide, you'll see this is the revisit of the preferred alternative, where we tweaked the alignment on the Thompson Road side to try and hug the tree line, and then reduce the 2 rail crossings to 1 crossing, improving safety with the railroad. And we selected the location that was at the property line boundary, so that way each property owner would then cross the tracks and go to their respective property. So that is a proposed modification to the alignment on the Thompson Road side. To the, I believe it's north, we don't have any proposed changes. That roadway alignment still it's approximately the same location. And then just the revisit of the recommended alternative from the scoping report. Basically, this overlays that same Thompson Road change with what was the preferred alternative in 2019, or the not preferred, the recommended alternative of 2019, showing the final connectivity over to Palmer Road. And that just overviews that entire new roadway layout that would be considered if that option were evaluated.
So John, I just had a quick question on just the slide before this one, when you talked about the alignment change where it crosses the railroad track. Now, that wasn't included in the proposal that we first accepted. So
no, I think, Aaron, if you want to flip back a few slides, we can actually look at it really quickly. If you just kind of take a visual snapshot of what we were showing, and then we actually have it in here in the beginning. So here was the actual alternative. It just showed crossing through the field, hooking onto Thompson Road, and then leaving the geometry of those drives as they are. So we tweaked that alignment, and basically we were trying to, through the coordination with the railroad, the operating railroad, they had indicated that it's not ideal for them to have, that many private crossings that close together. And if there was any option or alternative that we could use to reduce those, that would be significantly beneficial from a safety perspective. Anytime there's a conflict with a railroad, if you can eliminate it either with vertical separation or eliminate it by sharing another crossing that already exists, that's reducing a point of conflict.
So the only reason I was asking is because it's a different alternative than we approved.
It is a different alternative.
Yeah, and it involves landowners there, so, have they been contacted? Are they on board with it? Are they okay with it? Or how does that work at this point then?
So I did leave a phone call. I had a phone number for that property owner, that landowner that was not previously affected. And I left them a message on their machine. I have not been able to establish a communication with them just yet. So that is still ongoing. And that would be part of the next step. If this is an acceptable alignment, we would be engaging that property owner and working with them through our traditional right-of-way process, like any of the other property owners who would be affected by a project.
All right, thank you.
I think maybe just the one other thing to point out here, I think it's probably fairly obvious, but the alignment of the roadway that goes through the middle of the field in this alternative versus trying to follow the tree line and the ditch line to avoid going through that middle of the field. Ultimately, if we move forward with one of these alternatives, Thompson Road basically gets demolished, so that all turns into kind of a one larger field. And so trying to maximize, we were trying to think about what is the best land use there, and then what is the best location of the roadway to maximize that land use.
So at this time, would you welcome questions or concerns from folks that are here at the meeting or joining us by Zoom? Or do you still have more of the presentation?
We only have one final slide, so yes, we would welcome questions. I think we were just going to talk about next steps, which are, making sure we're on the same page with the select board and the town, moving forward into preliminary design, going through our NEPA documentation, our NEPA process, environmental permitting. And once we have preliminary plans completed, we would start the right-of-way acquisition piece where we would engage with property owners. A lot of these are larger acquisitions, so there would be appraisals, independent appraisals. Then there's a whole negotiation phase. And then we would be concurrently doing that at the same time as final design. And ultimately, when all permits were in place, right-of-way acquisitions were in place, and final design was done, we would move into executing a construction contract.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think just one other item. John alluded to this earlier, but to highlight, up until this point, it's really just been drawing the alignments kind of on the piece of paper. Once we jump into that preliminary design, it really starts to be about the actual kind of physical limits of disturbance that we define, because that'll go forward, for use in the NEPA documentation, the environmental permitting, right-of-way acquisition is all based upon those physical limits of disturbance that are developed. So we don't want to be changing locations of roadways and that type of thing, going forward.
Well, when this project came back up for review, just over the last week, I myself have gotten a lot of pushback and a lot of calls that the town just maintain their choice that they made, that the alternative 2 that the town picked back in September of 2019. I realize that looking for a confirmation on that gives us an option of doing something different. I have a hard time making a decision like that. When I sit down and I look at what we went through last time with this project, with all the pluses and all the items that we had to consider, it was an extremely hard decision back then, and I believe it was 3-2 back then. I would welcome any board members' opinions or comments on this, or anybody from...
So, Arnie, I have a question. If you could go to the recommended alternative slide, please. So I see that the access between Jewett Road and Palmer Road goes right next to the railroad. Is there an option for just continuing the road between the new access road and Jewett Road across the field to Palmer Road on this, I guess it would be the north side of those houses? Yeah, right in there.
I think the answer is possibly yes. I mean, when that recommended alternative was developed back in 2019, it was just trying to take, the existing drives that were in place and limiting reducing the total distance of new construction, thinking that would be least impactful. So there's already kind of a little spur on that railroad line up on the north end of Palmer Road. That's a driveway. And then there's, the little spur up Jewett Road to the rail crossing. So that was just the shortest distance. So that was why that was evaluated. But I think back to the comment we made about the nodes, the design team, the goal would be just to make connectivity to the nodes, right? Whether that's via the Palmer Road Bridge or via a new roadway constructed, that the connectivity piece is just maintaining access to those parcels, those nodes of interest, and just also mitigating impacts to resources. So the floodplains being one of those resources. So I guess the answer is yes. It would just need to be evaluated through the NEPA process.
So if I understand the map correctly, that whitish hatch pattern that extends from the river toward the buildings, that line that crosses, yes, that's the edge of the floodplain?
That's the edge of the floodway. Floodplain is up here.
Okay. So is there, I guess the reason, in concurrence with what Arnie said just a few minutes ago, we had a lot of discussions about the potential for a road to go through somebody's dooryard and then constructing a road next to the railroad right away. And it seems to me that if we don't have to revisit those issues once again, I realize there's issues related to the property and how we're going to mitigate losses to property value or usage, but it seems like if that's an option, I'd love to see that at least explored a little bit rather than traveling through a dooryard and then along the railroad.
So seeing a connectivity option right there through the cursor is going?
Yes. If that's possible.
From an engineering perspective, I believe it is possible. It would just be up to the select board as far as which alternatives they wanted to pursue.
Well, I mean, if you go back to the preferred alternative, that's what we voted on, and that's what we preferred. But I guess I need to understand a little bit better the financial impacts of the preferred alternative versus your recommended alternative in order to make an informed decision.
From a financial perspective, the town shares do not change. They are the same for both alternatives. The increase in cost would be for the amount of additional right-of-way acquisition, which would have to occur, as well as the additional roadway construction, which would have to occur. And I would also anticipate that at that time, you would also do the deconstruction of the Palmer Road, because it is, functionally obsolete. And if you had the new asset connected to it, you wouldn't need it. So those would be the increase in costs that would occur. That's the difference, I think, really, ultimately, is the specific cost of right-of-way, and then the actual physical infrastructure. The engineering costs would not be significantly different. Those are relatively simple changes to add to the project from an engineering perspective. And it's under the same project name and number, so this one would get the same funding ratios that we have that we've outlined, which are the 2.5% town share.
So if I understand you correctly, if we went with our preferred alternative, the cost is going to be less than what you're showing as a recommended alternative, just because we're constructing less road.
And less right-of-way acquisition. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Hi, it's Heather.
Go ahead, Heather.
It's my understanding that some of these properties are being sold right now. And so I think that we need to make sure we've contacted people and let them know the situation. We really have to do our due diligence with that. And I don't believe that's been done. So I just am concerned about that.
Hi, Heather. My name is Corey Quinville, and I'm the new owner of Palmer.
Okay, good.
And we have not been able to. Oh, sorry.
Corey, have you been aware of this project when you first purchased that property? Were you told of it?
I was not, sir. I had a note put on my door about the select board meeting tonight, so I have joined, and it's a pleasure to meet all of you.
Pleasure to meet you too. I'm very surprised that when a real estate transaction like this happens, that you wouldn't be informed about items like this that have been decided upon in the past that affect that property. I would think that the skills would have been there. I don't know how exactly it works and what happens, but.
Yeah, I agree, but no pun intended, but it's water under the bridge, right? I own it, and here we are. So that's okay. But if I understand correctly, the one that was voted on does not affect my property, but the recommended does?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Dick, would you like to?
Well, and I think out of courtesy, if you want some access to this, besides in this meeting, people should be available to discuss this with you.
Thank you, Heather. Dick, would you like to say something?
Yes, as far as the notification of Corey's being notified, at the same time, or near the same time that this project was decided, and it was pretty much put to bed that it was not going to go over to what was at that time, or had been, the Goodrich property. The town repaired that bridge to that property, and I believe it was done to town's, states being happy with what was done and done correctly. And so that bridge, in my mind, is worth another 50 years. I may be wrong there, but that bridge is perfectly adequate to supply that property, I believe. Now, as far as, I guess I'm probably the one that didn't answer my message machine. I would like them to take a cell phone number. I'm the one that's going to be the crossing in this proposal that will be used, and my cell phone number is 353-7890. I'm all for eliminating one of those crossings, although I was the one that caused the second crossing back 50, 60 years ago when I built that house. I got permission to put the driveway there from the railroad, and it was done and so forth. I'm all for having one crossing. I don't like the going across the crossing and making a 90-degree turn to the left. It's a small wetland area there that can be dealt with, I guess. It's not a problem. My property corner pin is right there, which can be dealt with also. But that corner is going to be pretty sharp to the left. And when you get over to the house that used to be the Thompson house, has anybody measured the distance from the right-of-way of the railroad to the house? I don't believe it's much more than 50 feet if it's that. And the house is a stone foundation that's been there since before the railroad was built, I'm told. So we'd have to be pretty careful to protect the foundation of the house. And then you're going to have another pretty sharp turn to get up into the dooryard of what used to be the Thompson house. So those would be my concerns there. I'm very pleased to see the road after it goes across the proposed bridge to stay near the hedge line or the property, what used to be property lines, because the earlier proposal shined lights right toward my house, which it still will. When they go over the bridge, the lights are going to come right toward our house. We're going to live with that. Yes, that's the one right there. So those are my concerns, and the biggest concern is that it turning left and going in between the Thompson house and the railroad tracks. Has anybody measured that distance?
And Ryan, are you on? Would you be able to answer that? I know we did take a preliminary look at those turning radiuses and whether or not those could be made by vehicles, but I think, Ryan, you might be able to speak to it a little bit more detailed potentially.
Yeah, I guess I don't think we've measured that exact distance. I mean, on the aerial here, it doesn't look terribly close, but yeah, we'd have to take a look at exactly how close that is.
So that property has not gone on the market yet that I know of, but I'm sure, I shouldn't say I'm sure, I'm pretty sure that it will be going on the market fairly soon. And I would like to suggest, and I'm not one to put projects off. I was chairman of the select board for quite a little while, and people will tell you that I tried to rush things through and get it done. But in this particular instance, I believe that these properties should be sold before we try to proceed with this, so that we are dealing with the proper future owners rather than the current ones that are there now. So that's basically what I have to say, and thank you very much for listening.
Dick, I can help you out on the one question that you had, or one statement about the longevity of the bridge. When we did have the repairs done, they gave us an estimate of 15 years.
15?
15. Now, I don't know if that's the whole bridge or parts of the bridge, but it would need more work. Maybe it's just parts of the bridge, but that's what they told us.
The deck might need some work, I suppose, but other than that, it's...
And I did leave a message for Jim Holler from Cold River Bridges today to ask him about what would be the next step for the bridge. Are we talking a full replacement, or are we just talking additional work 15 years from now? It is a big year. It is a big difference. So I'm assuming I'll hear from Jimmy tomorrow probably, but.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dick. Any other questions or concerns? Sure, Amy.
Hello, good evening. My name is Amy Mosier. I'm the resident that lives on Jewett Road in the historic Jewett farmhouse. Just give me a moment, please. So I'm going to read prepared statements that I worked on today when I found out that we're still looking at what we were looking at a year and a half ago for consideration. That really took me by surprise. So I'm here tonight to respectfully ask the Chester Select Board to choose the 2019 Chester Preferred Alternative shown in Slide 5, and to ask the Select Board to continue to move forward in a positive and productive direction with the Thompson Bridge project. The preferred alternative is the alternative the town voted to approve in the fall of 2019. This viable alternative combines Druitt Road and Thompson Road into one bridge. As you probably remember, the other proposed alternative would require the town of Chester to do an eminent domain condemnation and taking of the land we live on. Tonight, I'm here to respectfully ask the Chester Select Board to move forward in a positive direction and tell V-Trans that yes, we as the town are in favor of the 2019 preferred alternative to combine Jewett and Thompson Road. To be honest, I trusted that the town was on the right path, and I thought the issue of taking land was behind us. I was surprised to find out just today, this morning, around 10 o'clock, 10:30 this morning, when I checked my email, that condemnation is indeed still being proposed before you tonight. Reversing the original decision and viable direction would not set a good precedent for the future of Chester. Additionally, the historic Jewett Farm, where we live, is listed on the Vermont State Historic Register, which affords it added protections against eminent domain and condemnation. My family and I are and have always been opposed to any condemnation of our land, the land where we have peacefully lived and raised a family for the last 17 years. I just want to acknowledge my two sons, Everett and Evan, who are both born in this town of Chester and have lived in that house their entire life. In conclusion, we're hoping and asking that we can move forward in a positive and viable direction, one that creates the most ease. And if that is the case, I am in full support of the Select Board's decision, which will hopefully take place tonight, because I think it's the most obvious and viable decision to be made. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for that input in that letter that you read there. I still have a copy of a poem by your son Everett here from our last meeting, and I was just reading it the other day. Anybody else have any comments or concerns or questions they would like to offer or ask the board or ask the folks from the state regarding this project? I don't see us taking any action today. I would like to give people a little more time to voice their opinions and contact us regarding any concerns they might have, and making sure that everybody that is in that area is aware of what's happening. Again, it's a surprise that a person that purchases the property and it's known what's going on in town, and I imagine, I don't know if, I can't say if the real estate folks know what's going on, that it wasn't disclosed. I realize that it might not affect you at all, but in a way, sometimes it might also too. So that was another concern that I had. It was a hard decision a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and I don't see what's going to change that much as far as what's happening now. It seems like an update from the state because they're proceeding to a different part of the plan where they're going to really start working on it as opposed to just being a concept. So they're asking us for our last blessing, our last, the last input, the last chance that we're going to get to have any say in this.
Arnie, can I just ask, are there board members that are thinking about changing the alternative?
Well, one board member, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, wasn't even involved in this discussion a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago. So there's a lot of information to digest and to go through and stuff, but, I mean, we did make a decision. So, I don't know. Does any of the board members have any other questions or concerns or any ideas on how to proceed with this?
Well, I guess, again, one of the things that will help me make a better decision, I mean, I'm leaning towards sticking with what we did, but there's also the financial aspect of it that is not clear right now as to what the cost of the town is going to be. And so if we are looking at this from a practical perspective, we need to know all the numbers, what we're getting into, how much money we as a town are going to spend. I mean, I like the 2.5% instead of 10%. Does that come with strings? What is actually 2.5% going to be versus the 10%? So I'd like to see those numbers. That's what I will need to help guide any decisions that we make.
Hey, this is Heather. I'd like that too.
Aaron, do you have?
I was actually just trying to pull up the 2019 scoping report because it had the funding, the total costs in there.
Yeah.
It would just be applying the new ratio, right? The reduced share. So I was actually trying to dig that up while you guys were asking, but I can say with certainty that 5% town share would be 5% across the board. That would be all participating costs, right? That's right-of-way acquisition, that's engineering, that's construction. And then the federal piece, the additional 5% of federal funds, I actually reached out to Federal Highway, have a call into them, and my understanding is that that's the same boat, that they treat it the same way. It's just a reduced share, and it applies to all phases of the project. But I did want concurrence on that before I committed to that in this forum. So that's why I kind of tried to leave that open a little bit. But my understanding is that it would be a 2.5% share for all costs. And I was just going to try and pull up the 2019 scoping report, which had those costs in it. And I can have that up in just a moment if you'd like to share, or I can send it out for circulation to review at a later time.
If you could dig them up, sure.
I'd like a copy of it so that I can look at it.
Heather, we have copies and that information at the town office. I've got a pile of it here too, but it's about 50 pages long, and I'm not going to start digging through it right now for those numbers. But from what I gather from Lee's question to the state, that our percentage of the cost will stay the same, whether we stay with our alternative that we chose or whether we switch. So that's 2.5%, I guess, stays in effect no matter what. Am I correct on that?
That is correct. And that is the caveat being that we construct the roadway portions first and then close Thompson Bridge for the duration of construction. That's how we get Act 153 to apply. So the town would have to agree to that sequence. Otherwise, Act 153 would not be applicable. In which case then it would stay at a 10% share minus the 2.5% from the splitting of the federal increased participation. So you go down to 7.5% basically.
So what would prevent the project from having those roads built first as opposed to the bridge?
Nothing. We would essentially require it in our contract with the contractor to have the roadway construction at least complete enough to maintain access from Thompson Road over to Jewett Road. And then there would obviously have to be some work on that turn there because it's a tight radius, just temporary work to make sure we can make that turn onto Jewett Road from that spur. But that would essentially allow the Thompson Road Bridge to be removed, thereby applying the Act 153. And the durations of that could be negotiated a little bit in greater detail as we understand the project better. It's typically considered a bridge closure period, so it might not have to be for all summer, but it could be for a period of a few weeks or some duration that is essentially qualifies it for that additional funding.
All right, thank you. I would think, because of the request for some more information and for select board members to look over this old part of the project also and stuff, I don't see us making a decision tonight. I would think that at our next meeting in 3 weeks, that we could decide whether to stay with what we chose or pursue an alternative, or, go that route, but I think.
I do have the alternatives matrix.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
All right, so alternative 5 at the time, which was what the state was recommending, which was the closure of all 3, was 1.8 million. Alternative was the closure of 2 bridges, replacement off alignment, and that looked like 1.6.
And that's the one that we chose. I guess that was, even though we were calling it alternative 2, I think that was alternative 4 back then. Because it was 2.
Correct.
Well,
and that was the 10% share, so it'd be $180,000 on the 1.8 million would be the town share at the old funding split. At the new funding split, it would be.
It was alternative 2, I think. Alternative 4 on this matrix doesn't have the removal of bridge. Yeah, okay, it's alternative 4, right? So it was 1.8 or 1.6 were the 2 numbers.
So that would reduce the town share from $180,000 thereabouts to $45,000. And then the other one was 1.6 million.
Yep, 1.6.
So
It'll be 160 down to 40.
So it'll be down to 40,000. So from that scoping report, it'd be about a $5,000 difference.
Help you out, Luke?
The other piece of information would be the Palmer
The road.
Bridge and what that
The Palmer Bridge?
Palmer Bridge
Yep.
information.
Yep.
That one question that Lee had about the road heading across there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll talk to Jim about Palmer Bridge.
No. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. The question that Lee had about the road going,
Yeah,
traveling
before you-
to the east of our homestead and still across the lower pasture that we own and maintain as a hayfield is in the 100-year floodplain. And we looked at that when this was all going on 1.5 years ago, and that was a suggestion by the state, and we clearly let them know that that was not a viable option either. And also just to mention, eminent domain is not an easy process to go through. It requires legal, and it wouldn't look very good for the town to do eminent domain against one of their local taxpayers. So that's also an added cost that could, very importantly, be factored into revisiting the state's proposed alternative.
Thank you, Amy.
I think Sean Cunningham has had his hand up.
Sorry, Sean, go ahead. I have a hard time paying attention to the board, and I can't see that well up there, but go ahead, Sean.
No problem, Ronnie. I'm just wondering who, in terms of eminent domain, who is actually doing the legal taking? Is it the state of Vermont, or is it the town of Chester?
Who is doing the what?
If we have to do condemnation, the
Town of
town
Chester.
has to do the work. It's a cost that is eligible to be funded through the project, but the actual legal work has to be the town of Chester.
They stated to us that if that comes to the path that we take, that it's included in the project cost. So the percentage would still be the same of the total project, but the legal expenses would be put in there. But it would be the town that would be the acting in court, not the state. Sure.
Amy Mosher again. I would just like to ask when you were informed of that, because this has been off my radar since the town made the decision. I went on with my life, and I've been blindsided by this today. So when we speak of fairness and integrity and transparency and goodwill towards our taxpayers, I'm not feeling that. I just want to express that with all honesty. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to just say that,
Hang in a
I just
second.
had a question
Heather,
that
just hang in a second.
kind of went beyond.
Go ahead.
So hearing you, Mr. Chairman, and the town manager mention that you have become aware of this information that.
This information was the information that we had at the original time,
Yeah,
too.
I've known that, yeah.
We've known this information about the condemnation process and the costs and where they come from and where they go when we originally looked at this project.
So how does that work again?
So if the select board changed their mind and went with the state's alternative, and the town had to go through a condemnation action for the road, the question was, who does that? So the town is who has to actually proceed with condemnation. It's not the state.
Mm-hmm. And hearing that it would be paid for by the state?
The project, it's considered a project cost. Condemnation is considered a project cost. So the town would have to pay the percentage, and then the state pays their percentage.
I'm still pretty hazy on it all, but.
The cost of the legal fees would be rolled into the price of the project.
Mm-hmm.
So the town's percentage would be the same. It would roll into the project. So it would increase the cost of the project. I mean, it's money. It's not like it's free or anything like that. It's rolled into the cost of the project, and then the percentage the town still pays.
But you would only be paying proposed 2.5% of
the cost.
That. And I just want to remind you how that would look.
No.
Reversing direction at this point in the
Yep.
bridge.
In all fairness, we're revisiting this because we have to make a final decision on this, and we represent the taxpayers for the whole town too. And there are a lot of other items in here besides the costs, as far as safety and bridges and maintenance and a lot of other things too. It doesn't mean we're going to do that, but that's part of our job too, to at least look at these things. Heather, you had something that you wanted to say?
I think you covered it, Arnie. This is a difficult thing to bring up, I'm sure, again, but I think we have to do our due diligence, and if the state asks us to revisit it, I think we should revisit it. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Heather. Sure.
The way it was explained to me was that the reason the state is asking you to revisit this isn't because they want you to rehash eminent domain and condemnation and taking people's land. They just want to be sure that before they spend any more money on engineering and plans and move forward, that they clearly understand where the town is coming from. And that's what they're asking for clarification on. They're not asking you to go and revisit what we went through a year and a half ago that brought a lot of unpleasantness. Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, maybe Jonathan Griffin can explain that they just want to know what direction the town wants to go in and is committed to going in before they spend any more money on engineering or any more energy contacting neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is John the Griffin here. Yes, the point of this presentation is for us to make sure that we advance the correct project, the correct scope of work that the town wants. I was present at that 2019 meeting, and I realized it was controversial and a split decision at that time. And we have had other projects in the state where we'll advance an alternative and then we'll get a change in decision. And we want to make sure that we're efficient with tax dollars and that we move forward. And we are trying not to rehash out items in the future when we've already gone through $100,000 worth of engineering costs and acquired permits and such. So we're here to advance this project, and the scope of that project is ultimately up to the town of Chester.
Thank you, John, for the clarification and the comment there. Anyone else? Any other comments or concerns? So at this point, I would just, we'll have this on our agenda at our next meeting to finalize it, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation and your time. The next item on our agenda.
Thank you. I think we'll sign off at this point.
Sure.
Gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, can I just share my information so I can be kept in the loop?
Yes, absolutely.
Is this Corey?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, thank you.
You got that, Julie?
Do you have what is a number and a mailing address? Do you mind sharing that over Zoom, Corey? Or you can...
Not at all. My cell phone number is 802-779-4617.
Perfect.
Email is cq@mcgeecars.com.
McGee, M-A-G?
MCGEE.
Oh, got it. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good
That's that.
information. I couldn't find him, so I'm glad we got on
All
here.
right. Next item is the coin drop from the American Legion. Julie, can you help us out on this one here? Do you know what's going on with that? Or
So the
Jeff,
Ameri-
are you going to be presenting that or talking?
I submitted the application, so she can.
The American Legion submitted an application for a coin drop. It has been signed off by the chief of police. You guys have a copy in your thing. You need to approve. Once it's approved by the select board, it then goes to the state. District 2 coordinator will then sign off.
I believe Arnie's signature is the only one required.
Correct. The board has to authorize Arnie, however, to sign it. Yep.
Is that Memorial Day weekend?
It's,
what, May
yeah,
28th?
Friday, the 28th, yeah.
28th?
Okay, thank you.
Just right in front of the Legion or right near the Legion? is
No,
it?
it's more towards between Mountain View and Marshall Road. They pretty much dictated where it had to be because of line of sight, and you gotta have a certain distance for the signs and all that stuff.
It says 10:30 till when, Jeff? Or is that?
2, I think. I thought it was, but is it not on here?
1400? Yeah, okay. Okay.
Jeff, you really should, for clarification, probably recuse yourself as a board member.
Well, I was asking him as a Legion person.
I know, but he
Yeah.
should,
Okay.
just for
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah. Okay, I recuse myself as a
Just
board
say it.
member.
Just
but
say it,
I'm
exactly.
speaking for the American
Yeah.
Legion.
That way, there's never a question.
Thank you, Julie.
Yep, sorry.
Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, we were asked this last year and we were going to come up with some criteria, right? So it just brings to light that I think we should bring up some criteria about coin drops. But I have no problem with this one. And, do we need a motion, Julie?
You need to authorize Arnie to sign. So that, yeah, a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to authorize Arnie to approve and sign it.
Second.
Heather's the motion, and Lee is the second to authorize the chair to sign the application for the American Legion for a coin drop on the date and time stated on the application. Is there any further discussion on it? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? put your select board hat back on, Jeff.
Okay.
Is this it right here?
That's it, that's the original.
Next item on the agenda is the paper of record. Every year, we go through this process of assigning a paper of record. Not much has changed as far as the state regulations go, but that being said, there are towns in the state that are now having a paper of record that is strictly electronic. In our package, there was some information enclosed in there regarding the two papers that have applied to be paper of record. One of them is the Vermont Journal, and the other one is the Chester Telegraph. And is there someone from the Chester Telegraph or the Vermont Journal that would like to speak to the board regarding their application?
Yeah, hi Ernie, this is Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia.
How are you guys doing? Yes, thank you for letting me speak. You know, I had given you a letter from board members and for some lawyers, but we feel that it's, you know, that the pandemic has really proved that people are using online newspapers now even more so than they did before. To start exploring going in that direction for our communities because we have a good, solid online newspaper that I would dare say the majority of Chester residents, you know, where we are today, and what we can offer the town by becoming the paper of record.
So picking a newspaper of record, it doesn't necessarily have to be one that is just in print form also. I think it could be a straight electronic one too.
And Arnie, don't we post notices on our bulletin board?
I believe we have to post them in two different locations.
Yes, they're on our website, they're at the post office, they're here at Town Hall, and, yeah.
This is Heather. And I think the legislature is behind on their definition of newspaper. And 5-6 years ago, whenever, I can remember voting, you know, for a paper, as in, you know, I think we had the Message and we had a couple then. And so I'm not seeing the newspaper as in the paper copies all around town very much. I think people, especially this year, have really moved to electronic things and become very much more savvy with technology. So, and I just don't think the legislature has defined it and is up to speed on that. No offense to them, they've had a lot going too. So I'm more inclined now, all these years later, to say, let's give it a go. I think in the years past, when there were a couple of papers, we went from year to year back and forth, as I recall, to share the wealth. But I think it's time to give this a try at the Chester Telegraph, is my opinion.
I also would like to add the information we have too about the cost of using the Vermont Journal. It's twice what's stated by Cynthia that it would cost us to use the Telegraph. And we are all moving forward. So.
Thank you, Lee. Any other board members? Any comments?
I have none.
Nothing at this time. Is there anyone from the Vermont Journal that would like to speak to the board or address this issue? They've done a great job over the years also. I mean, Sharon Huntley has covered the board extensively and written some in-depth and excellent articles regarding what's been going on. The Vermont Journal is being sold to the Rutland paper. Is that the truth? Is that?
I had heard that. I haven't.
We don't know if that's for a fact.
I don't know. I haven't spoke with the Rutland Herald, but I have heard that from a few sources.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll make a motion that we select the Chester Telegraph as the town's newspaper of record or paper of record.
I'd like to second that, Lee.
So Lee is the motion, Heather's a second, and any further discussion on that? I would just like to add that town will do everything it can in its power to make sure that people that don't have access electronically to the legal notices that we put out or whatever, if they would like to get notified by mail, by snail mail, or however they would want, by a phone call or whatever, to please contact the Chester town office, and we will try to accommodate them as best we can to make sure that everybody stays in the loop and is aware of things that happen in town. And they are posted in 2 different places, and maybe there's a third place that we should do it if it works out and somebody has a suggestion for that. I mean, right now we do it in Town Hall and.
Town Hall, the post office,
Yeah,
and sometimes the hardware store, depending on what it is.
I mean, we want to make sure that people are aware of what's going on and they have access to all the legal notices or whatever happens as far as the town's concerned, but realizing what some other board members said, that electronic newspapers are, are what's happening there. That's what's going to be going on. It's the wave. And the Chester Telegraph has done an excellent job of covering our town. And what's really important is that in the speed that it happens. It's not a weekly. It comes out whenever there's news. And there's a lot of times that an article will be out a day after something has happened when it's important enough to warrant it and stuff. And that's really appreciated in this day and age, that the word gets out quickly and efficiently and done professionally like they do there. That's my 2 cents on this. Any other comments or concerns or questions? Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the Chester Telegraph as the paper of record for the town of Chester, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Chester Telegraph it is. I think this is probably the 4th or 5th year that the request has been in. And I'm happy to say we got there, all set. Thank you.
Well, could I just say thank you very much?
Sure, Sid.
Thank you.
Next issue on our agenda is annual appointments. And do we need motions for this, or we just go down a list and
I would just read the list as a whole and make unless there's somebody that you object to, and just make a motion on the list.
There's one change that I would like to make on this, and it's regarding the Transportation Advisory Council. We were approached by a new resident in town, Kent Gilman, who was interested in being the Transportation Advisory Council alternative, but he also stated that he would take on the job as the representative if I was interested in maybe retiring from that position for a while, which I've been doing for a long time. And Kent, I would more than welcome you to be the Transportation Advisory Council main representative if you're willing to, and I guess you are, because that's what your letter said there. I tried contacting you the other day. I did by email, and I would love to sit around and have a chat with you to get you up to speed on that and talk to you regarding what we do on the Traffic Advisory Council. It seems like you have the experience. You've done it before. You've been involved in town government, and it's appreciated that you want to get involved in our local government and our local town. So I see that you're on board with us here on a Zoom meeting, and are you okay with taking that position?
Yes, I would.
Thanks, Kent. So that's the only change that I see on the list.
No, Jack Cable as fence viewer. Jack doesn't live in Chester anymore.
Which one was that on?
Fence viewer,
Where's that?
fence viewers up near the top.
Fence viewer?
One of the three.
He's one of the 3 fence
Oh,
viewers.
okay, okay.
So you take Jack off, you would just have 2.
Is he the man that moved over to be with his wife at the nursing home?
Yes.
Yes.
He came in today and he is living in Chester.
Okay.
He's in the senior apartments.
Oh, so then we can leave him. Thank you, Amy.
Oh, I didn't hear that. What did she say?
Jack Cable is back in town.
Okay, great.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Amy.
That makes me feel better.
I don't know what we would do if we didn't have 3 fence viewers.
I know. I was going to raise my hand, except I don't know what they do.
They view the fences. Don't you
I know
know?
what they do because my dad was one for years, and they actually used to use that position.
They did, but in my
Absolutely, you're right.
in my 16 years here, we've never used it.
Well, I'm talking 30 years ago.
I
plus.
know, I know.
Is it a boundary thing?
I think it's great that we have them, though. Tradition.
Oh, I do too. You never know when they'll be.
Hold on, everybody.
Got everybody talking.
It's a fence viewer, basically, if your neighbors have conflicts because somebody's sheep's getting through the fence or whatever onto the neighbor's land, the fence viewer goes and looks at the fence and says if that's an adequate sheep fence or if it's just for cattle or whatever, and they decide whether the fence is adequate for whatever livestock is in
Oh,
the...
so that's the history. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, and maybe it'll come into play again. There's more and more people having animals and doing fun things around.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go down the list. They're all one-year terms. And animal control officer, who is the police chief, the cemetery sexton, Jeffrey Sheldon. We have no one for the Connecticut River Authority. Senior Solutions, Linda Stoll. Emergency manager is our town manager, Julie Hance. And our fence viewers, Frank Balsh, Jack Cable, and Tony Weinberger. Our first constable, Jeff Holden.
That's changed.
Adam Woodell.
Oh,
I was the current one, but
what's that, Jeff?
I was the current constable, but because of being on the select board, it's considered a conflict, so Adam Woodell was a certified law enforcement officer.
Adam?
Woodell,
So
yes.
you should be reading on the right-hand column.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yep, thank you. Green Update Chairman, Frank Kelly. Inspector of Lumber, Shingles and Wood, Tony Weinberger. Pound Keeper, Police Chief. Regional Planning Representative, Tom Bach. RPC Alternate, Derek Surso. Road Commissioner, the Town Manager. Secretary to Selectmen, Amy O'Brien. Board of Wastewater Disposal is the Select Board. The Solid Waste District Rep is Derek Surso, and the Solid Waste District Rep Alternative is Alden Blodgett. Town Service Officer is the Town Manager. The Transportation Advisory Council will be Kent Gilman, and the Transportation Advisory Council alternate will be Arnie Janinas. The Tree Warden will be Joseph Epler. The Water Commissioners is the Board of Selectmen, and the Weigher of Coal is Tony Weinberger. Oh, and the Library Trustee, and an unexpired term until the next election, if Kathy Hasbrook. So we need a motion to approve this 2021 appointment list to those positions stated.
So moved.
So moved.
Lee Gustafson's the motion. Heather, you want to be the second on that one?
Sure.
Lee Gustafson's the motion, Heather is the second. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor of approving the 2021 appointment list, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? And I'd like to thank all those people that volunteer their time and service to the town, and welcome Kent Gilman to the position. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, welcome. Thank you.
Ernie? This is Kent Gilman.
Go ahead, Kent.
I sent you back an email in response to yours.
Okay.
So it gives you the time and stuff to get hold of me.
Sure. Looking forward to meeting you and talking with you. Thanks, Kent.
Yep.
We have some paperwork on the next agenda item, liquor licenses and entertainment permit for the Fullerton Inn. Basically just some housekeeping. Any concerns or questions regarding that? Everyone's been notified and the police chief's fine and everybody's good on it?
Yep.
So basically it's just some signatures. It's a 2021 liquor license renewal for the Fullerton Inn. And the 2021 liquor license renewal also for the Fullerton.
They're all for the Fullerton. They're their outside consumption, the entertainment, and their liquor license.
And the entertainment, okay.
Correct. Yep.
Thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
Do we all have to sign those?
I just need 3 signatures, Lee, so.
Oh, you
don't
have
to
them
stop
there.
it Unless you want to.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be getting back to some normalcy. I know I get my first shot tomorrow.
Woohoo! Has a clinic in Chester opened yet?
What's that?
I understand that Chester's going to be a site for vaccinations. The old clinic, the Ellsworth Clinic.
Yep, that's what they're talking about.
They haven't opened that yet?
Not yet. I believe it's coming.
That's good.
Done.
All set, Lee? Yep. Next agenda item is new business and future agenda items. So we'll have the bridge project decision.
Yes.
Also looks like possible fund balance policy. Justin Dyack regarding the skateboard park.
Possibly,
Might be coming back. Does anyone, any board member have any suggestions or anything they would like on a future agenda?
I have nothing.
All right. Julie, anything else that covers it?
Arnie?
Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
At some point, I think we should, if we want to, revisit the coin drop policy, or we were going to set out some guidelines. And also, weren't we going to talk to Bob Flint about new guidelines for the Economic Development Fund?
Yeah, Arnie and I were talking about that at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear.
No, you weren't there. It was before the meeting even started.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to reach out to him and try to find some time where him and I can talk about maybe some ways we can be a little more flexible and let some local businesses use that money.
Okay, and I don't mean that it needs to be the next meeting, just maybe in the next quarter we could address these things.
Yep.
Thank you.
No, it's definitely a good idea. After hearing the numbers that are in that fund, it would be, I guess it would be nice if it was being used.
Absolutely.
For the purpose that we designed it for.
Yep.
Hearing no other items for future agendas and stuff, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
To review our interviews for the Planning Commission and the Development Review Board. Lee Dakins, the motion.
Second.
Lee Dakins, a second. Any discussion on it? All those in favor of entering executive session, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right.
So because you come back into open session to make your appointment, there are people on Zoom that want to wait. Just hang on and I will put you in, or Amy will put you in the waiting room. And then you guys can have your discussion. And then we'll let people back in. I can wait. You can let me know I can let people back in, or you can do it, Lee, whatever you want.
Yeah, either way.
You know how to do it, Lee?
Yeah.
So go ahead and start putting people in waiting room.